Yeah, this is the guy that I'm about to defend. And I already know how that sounds. A 34-year-old man, a pervert, some people call him predator, and honestly, defending him does feel wrong. See, the problem isn't that Rudeus is indefensible. Actually, he kinda is. But the real problem is that the entire conversation about him starts with the assumption that just is wrong. And once I tell you that, the whole debate around Rudeus just changes. Every single argument about Rudeus starts the same way. He is a 34-year-old man in a kid's body, and yeah, technically that's very true. But I'm not here to defend his actions. What I'm saying is, when people hear 34-year-old man, they picture someone with job, relationship, social skill, a normal functioning adult. And that comparison is already wrong. Let's actually look at who this guy was before he got isekai'd. He was a normal kid at first, then his high school phase come. At 15, a group of upperclassmen beat him up, stripped him naked, took pictures of him and spread them around the school. Teachers saw it, students saw it, and nobody did a thing. And that broke him, not in a dramatical anime way, but in a real way. He dropped out of school, went home, locked himself, and didn't come out for like 20 years. No friends, no relationship, no jobs, no social interaction outside his family. Just a screen, just a room, a 20 years of nothing. This isn't just anime logic, there's an actual research on this. Studies on adolescent social isolation shows that when someone experiences severe trauma during their teenage years and then withdraws from all social contacts, their emotional and social development can effectively stall. Psychologists call it arrested development, and the brain never gets the practice it needs to mature because the person never interacts with the world. 20 years alone in a room doesn't make you a 34-year-old adult, it makes you a kid trapped in an old cage. So when people say he's a 34-year-old man, I'm not saying his age doesn't matter, it definitely does. What I'm saying is, if you're treating those 20 years of being locked in a room as if he was out there living, growing and having experiences, and let's be real, we all know what he was actually doing in that room for 20 years. We're comparing him to the person who doesn't exist. That gap between a 34-year-old everyone imagines and the person he actually was, that way the whole debate goes wrong. Now, does that excuses everything he does? No, absolutely not. But if you want to actually understand this character instead of just reacting to him, you have to start from here. And even when he gets his second chance, his first 5 years aren't exactly a fresh start. In this world, children are kept inside until the age of 5. It's a cultural thing, the world is genuinely dangerous, so family keeps kids sheltered. So for his first 5 years, Rudeus barely gets any social interaction again. It was very clear the moment he was born into a new world, he was excited to see his mom's breast and then stealings made Lily's undergarment. Zero development, zero growth, he carries every bad habit from his old life straight into this one. Now let's talk about the part everyone hates. Yes, Rudeus is a pervert, and I'm not going to pretend he's not. And honestly, I wish I could tell you it gets dramatically better across the show, but it kinda doesn't. There are bad scenes in season 1, there are still bad scenes in season 2. It's a problem that sticks around. But here's what I do think is worth pointing out. For most of the season 1, Rudeus doesn't treat this world like a real. It's more like a game to him, an adventure, a do-over. And you can see that crack when he reunites with the Paul after the mana disaster. Paul is angry, stressed, broken from searching for his family, and Rudeus walks in like talk about his journey like it was a RPG side quest. And Paul's call him out, and honestly Paul was right. Rudeus had not processed that people actually die here. This isn't a game, that his family isn't just set of NPCs. And after the mana disaster, when his entire family gets scattered across the world and he doesn't try to contact them, now look, to be fair, he was stranded on a demon continent. He couldn't exactly send a letter from middle of nowhere. But even after he reaches a town, even after he has the means, he still doesn't reach out. Not for a long time, and honestly that tracks, because this is the same guy who didn't even attend his own parents' funeral in the past life. That real emotional parent-child bond, it's not there yet. Paul is just some guy who happens to be his father, and Rudeus judges Paul constantly in his internal monologue, which says a lot about where his head is. Now let me protect my client. So now let's look at his romantic track record, and now I'm going to defend my client. First romantic interest, Roxy. Now people love to throw around the age thing with Rudeus, but Roxy is a migrate. She's over 40 years old. She's a grown demon race woman, so my client record remains clean. Second, Sylphy. They were kids together, childhood friend, and Rudeus literally said he was going to groom Sylphy into his perfect wife. Yeah, he said that. Now, thankfully, Paul caught that on and separated them before they went anywhere. And if Paul hadn't stepped in, that would have gone real bad. So, another point for us, I guess Paul doing the heavy lifting here. Now, third, Eris. I can't help with that one, to be honest. But look, 2 out of 3. I don't think I did a bad job. But for real, let's talk about Eris because there are 2 scenes we have to confront. Scene 1. It's Rudeus' 10th birthday. His parents weren't able to come. He was upset, feeling alone. And Eris comes to his room to comfort him. She was genuinely trying to be there for him and Rudeus take it too far. He crosses the line and Eris beat the hell out of him. And honestly, he earned every hit. Now scene 2, which is far worse. After the Mana disaster, Rudeus and Eris finally make it back to a Fitova region and Eris find out everything. Her parents, Philip and Hilda were teleported into a conflict zone and killed. Her grandfather, Saurus, was executed as a scapegoat for the disaster. The entire Boreas house has collapsed. She has been declared dead to protect her from being forced into a political marriage. Everything she had is gone. So she goes to Rudeus, the same way she went to his room before, but this time the roles are reversed. She is the vulnerable one, she is looking for comfort. And the bad part, Rudeus' inner monologue tells us he knows she is not in her right mind, he knows this isn't a real choice she is making, and he still goes through with it. And here is where I think the story, or honestly the author failed. They tried to frame this as a Eris being the initiator. They tried to make Rudeus not to look a bad guy, but they forget to make him good either. Because his inner monologue tells us he's aware of what's happening, and that awareness is exactly what makes the audience trust him less, not more. If he didn't know, we could actually defend him, but he knew, and the author could have written this differently, and I think that's worth saying. And look, in any other isekai, if the MC didn't have the Rudeus backstory, nobody would have questioned any of this. The pervy jokes, the age gap, that stuff is everywhere in this genre. Tell me if you agree or not. But the fact that he is a grown man from a modern Japan in a kid body, that makes every scene hit different. And the show choose that, so it has to deal with that heat. And while we are being honest, let me just say things I can't defend, actually no one can defend. Stealing Roxy's underwear and literally worshipping it, Beast Girl kidnapping and confinement in season 2, the constant objectification of women in his inner monologue. These aren't just anime powered comedy, you can't just say they are just harmless gags. And the age argument doesn't disappear just because the fantasy world have different norms. Rudeus is from modern Japan, he carries the modern knowledge, he knows better. And then there is Roxy's situation. He sleeps with Roxy while he was married to Sylphy at his absolute lowest point, right after Paul's death, and seeing what happened to Zenith. The polygamous or multiple wife marriage gets culturally accepted later, sure, but that doesn't erase the initial betrayal. And the quick acceptance from Sylphy, some people read it as cultural choice and other people sees at Sylphy's deep insecurities. Either way, it's not clean. Now the show does try to give Rudeus some consequences. So when he sleeps with Eris and she leaves, he thinks she rejected him and then he gets hit with ED and full depression arc from there. The show tries to atone for Rudeus by giving him trauma, and honestly I think they did a very bad job at it. Because here's the thing, the story keeps trying to make Rudeus not look bad whenever there's a bad situation, but the story does a very bad job of making him look good. And the main reason is just because of his internal monologue. Every time he does something questionable, the story bends itself to soften the blow. They frame someone else as an initiator, give him a sad backstory moment and throw some depression. But it never gives him a scene where he's genuinely clear and unambiguously a good person. And that's the real problem. That's why defending him feels wrong. The story itself doesn't even commit to his defenses. And about the multiple wife thing, I know it looks bad from outside, but each of these romance happens separately, not at the same time. Look, he falls for Roxy first, then that fades away into the distance. Then Sylvie comes, he falls for her, but Paul separated them. Then the Mana disaster, then he was with Eris, then Eris left, and from his perspective, she rejected him. She left a note saying that they weren't good match. As a viewer, we all know she left to get stronger, to stand by him as an equal, but he doesn't know that. He thinks she left because he took advantage of her, and that guilt, that's actually why he was able to move on. Not because he forgot Eris, but because he genuinely believed everything is finished with her. And then one by one they all come back into his life, not at the same time, but close enough that it gets messy. So, why does defending Rudeus feels wrong? Because the show doesn't even defend him. It tries to soften his worst moments, sure, but it never actually builds that case where he's a good person, where he's just shown as a good character. And if the story itself can't do it, we as an audience definitely can't build the defense the writer themselves didn't want to write. And this is what I think. This anime is about a flawed MC, not a flawed MC on a journey to become a hero, just a flawed MC. And I think we can love this show while accepting that fact. We don't need to defend Rudeus, we don't need to pretend he's good, because even the story did a good job at it. Redemption is probably the wrong word for what the show is doing. This isn't about Rudeus arriving at some finish line where he's forgiven. I think it's more about whether a broken person can be less broken, not very good, just less bad. And honestly, that might be the most honest story than most of the anime is willing to tell. If you made this far, I actually love to hear your take. Tell me if you agree with me or not. Drop your comments below. And honestly, if you liked, please subscribe. I know everyone says that, but I'm a small channel and YouTube is rough right now. My last few videos got like 50 impressions in like 3 days and then just stopped. So if you enjoyed this and want to see more, subscribing genuinely helps. More stuff like this is coming, so see you in the next one.